So welcome to this conversation about talking about climate change. And my name's Evan Goodstein from the Worldwide Teach-In, and we were just getting started talking about the Teach-In for 2023. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and we'll have that conversation. Here we go. So this is the master map that shows our progress. As I mentioned last year, we had 350 events around the world, and our goal is to at least double that, triple that. We engaged 50,000 people last year. We need to engage 500,000, and we can only do that with your help. So we'd like to ask you today, after you leave this call, to go to this map and register your university, high school, other organization as participating in the Teach-In. You don't need to know what you're going to do yet. You don't have a team yet, but you do need to step up. We all need to step up and just commit to having some kind of event at your organization on or around March 29th, 2023. Let's see, here's a new bubble on the map. It's just popped up. So who is that? That would be a lot of information in Portuguese, Centro Universitario Una in Belo Horizonte. Excited to have them joining the project and participating. And so you see, they haven't said what they're doing yet, right? They're just indicated their participation. You can always go in and edit your bubble later on as you get started. That is what you're supposed to do, but what is the Teach-In? And here's where you go to our website. We've got a fabulous set of resources for you here. If you go to the menu section, here's the Teach-In models, all kinds of ideas for bringing your community together. David, do you want me to go into that a little bit, or should we shift over to the speakers?
Why don't you go ahead, Eben, and then we'll have the speakers after that.
All right. Well, in that case, I think what I'd like to do, actually, we have a nice 1-minute video that kind of captures the spirit of the Teach-In. So why don't I share that and give you that quick introduction to the project, and then we can talk a little bit more about it. So here's the desktop, and here are the movies. So I could do this in Spanish or English. Let's do the English version. We do have a nice Spanish version that just came out. Here we go.
Mobilize the power of educators and students and empower a generation of fighting to stabilize the climate and advance climate justice.
We all need to get comfortable talking about climate all the time. The Teach-In helps us do that.
The Worldwide Teach-In is a call to organize events on campus or community on or around March 29th, 2023.
Key to a successful Teach-In is relying on homegrown talent, not outside experts. The more local educators you involve directly from your school or community, the more people will attend the event.
They will do this gladly because they are really worried about climate change, just like you.
Our team is here to support you, but you have to step forward. Join us.
All right, that is a teaser for a longer video that we have on our website. It's about 10 minutes long that really goes through and into detail about how to organize a Teach-In on your campus. So if you go to our main page and you scroll down, here's the teaser video right here, but it says underneath, click here to watch the full 10-minute version. That kind of lays out 4 or 5 different models. Just last week at our university, I got up in front of our faculty, full faculty at the faculty meeting, and requested that they participate in the Teach-In, laid out some opportunities for them. And that's kind of the expectation, is once you've got a vision, engaging lots of local faculty who aren't necessarily climate experts, just climate concerned educators, That's the secret to a strong teach-in. So maybe I'll stop there for now. David, see if there's any questions about the teach-in, and then we could roll into the presentations.
Perfect.
So any questions at all about this idea of teach-in, what one should do, how it works, how long it lasts, why it's easy to do, difficult to do? Any questions? Feel free to hold up your hand, ask questions in the chat, and unmute yourselves.
All right. Well, maybe as they learn about the applications of the teach-ins, there'll be some more questions and discussion. So why don't we, why don't you stop sharing your screen now, and we'll turn to ASU, and you're going to need to make Sayar and Elizabeth co-hosts also, so they can share. And then our final presenter, Jeanie, is currently meeting with a student, but she will join us.
Is that Elizabeth Quigley?
Yeah, Elizabeth Quigley, and I'm sure I'm not pronouncing your name quite right, but Sayar. Great. So
Elizabeth, your co-host now, you can share your slides.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. So what we want to do, in addition to the general presentation of the teach-in, is to show examples of a couple of universities and how they applied the teach-ins, because one of the key things, as even said, is that we have some models, but what's exciting about the teach-in is that the content is really locally controlled and locally relevant. So we have nearly 350 different models of doing different kinds of teach-in. Some did the same model at different institutions. And Arizona State University, as we'll be hearing in a moment, has tied this in with a bigger project that they're doing called Turn It Around. And so we're joined this morning by two Arizona State people. Sayar Daria is a recent graduate of Arizona State, and Elizabeth Quigley is currently a student at Arizona State. And they were both involved in helping to organize and lead the teach-in. And before I turn it to them, I'll just say that is another mark of this project, is that there is youth leadership. And we all know that the youth are really leading us and pushing us, as they should be, for climate action. And that's also very much the case with the teach-in, is that we have a lot of students and recent students who are involved in the teach-ins at their institutions. So we'll turn it now to you, and let's hear about Turn It Around cards, or Turn It Around and the whole project.
Amazing. Thank you, David. Hello, all, and thank you for being here this morning. I'm Elizabeth Quigley. I'm, as David said, a current student, a senior at Arizona State University. And I'll pass it to Sayarchana to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Sarachana. I just graduated from Arizona State University, and I'm the Youth Engagement Lead for Turn It Around cards.
Yes, and I'm the Youth Education Ambassador, and today we'll be sharing with you our project Turn Around cards, and luckily it has a lot of synergy with the teach-in, so this was a great tool for us to utilize at our university. So to kind of start with some background on the project, is education a cause to the climate crisis? So one of the main motivations behind this project from our professor, Betisalova, was the concept that education really drives towards consumerism, capitalism, and all the behaviors and mindsets that are driving the climate crisis. Students are taught to value their work through their economic value rather than their environmental, and there's a valuation of the economy, money, and productivity in terms of how much you can produce rather than the environment and community. So to kind of turn things around, this project really embraces the idea that education can be a solution. And the mindset that was behind this project was bringing together the visions and voices of youth, especially artists and leaders, to reimagine what education can be regarding the climate crisis and to mobilize the power of socially engaged in science and facts to move policymakers, educators, and even youth and adults to embrace this movement and to create a charge for change.
So Turnaround Cards is basically a collection of flashcards made by young people for adults. And it takes a very unique approach towards climate change education, using artwork, poetry, and writing to basically educate adults about climate change, which is a very interesting and exciting approach. Basically, we had young people around the world send us artwork and writing about what changes they envision in environmental policy and climate education. And we turned these visions into a deck of cards, which communicates these visions of young people. And these deck of cards have basically been used as an education tool, not only in classrooms, but also for policymakers that are basically developing climate policies to address climate change. We wanted to find a way to bridge the gap between young people and policymakers, and we used artwork, poetry, and writing to do that. And this basically collection of flashcards have also been sent to classrooms around the world to be used to educate young people about climate change. So it's a very dynamic set of cards. It's used in so many different settings, including political settings and classroom settings and artistic settings, to basically communicate important information about climate change in a very creative and innovative way. So we basically started this global movement a year ago. We had 430 submissions from 44 countries and 5 continents from around the world. And it was this exciting project we started in May of 2021. And originally, it was supposed to end at COP26, the United Nations Climate Change Conference of 2021. But then we realized that this project had a life of its own and that it could live beyond just one conference. And after that one conference, we've basically been innovating, finding ways to get climate education more involved and advocated for in different spaces, including classrooms and different policymaking settings. So this project has traveled around the world, including to Egypt, Scotland, Idaho. So it's basically traveled to so many different parts of the world. And recently we had a collection that focused specifically on the stories and experiences of young people from Southeast Asia, with the hopes of basically advocating for their stories. Anne Brown, I just saw your comment. Basically right now, we're in the process of printing new decks of cards. In about a month or two, we'll have more cards that can be ordered, and they can be found on our website. At the end of this PowerPoint, we'll go over how to find our website. So basically, over the past 1 year, we've been on this journey to share these deck of cards with leaders around the world. We've traveled to United Nations conferences, we've traveled to conferences with members of parliament, and different conferences around the world to share these visions of young people with policymakers. What's amazing about this deck of cards is it's not just an education tool for classrooms, it's also an education tool for policymakers, because oftentimes these conferences can be very elite, and young people are not invited into the decision-making rooms, which is heartbreaking because they're making decisions about the future of the world without the people living those futures present in the room. And we wanted to change that. So one deck of cards has the visions of about 100 people around the world. And we were able to give that deck of cards to policymakers at these conferences. We were able to meet the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, the Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed of the UN. We also gave the card deck to John Kerry, the US climate envoy that works for Biden. We also gave it to the United Nations Youth Envoy. We've been to COP26. We're at COP27 right now in Egypt. We traveled to the United Nations Transforming Education Summit. And the whole goal of all of this is to basically bridge the gap and find creative ways to communicate the visions that young people have around climate policy and climate education. So we wanted to take a step forward beyond just a card deck and find a creative way to advise policies for world leaders. So we gathered a group of PhD students at Arizona State University to analyze all the art submissions and writing submissions we got from people around the world. And we turned these analyzations into a concise policy report that we've been giving to world leaders. And this policy report takes a very creative approach towards advising policies. We have poems and pieces of art in this policy, along with questions for reflection from policymakers. So in this policy report, we talk about the importance of climate education as one of the core pillars towards addressing the climate crisis. And this policy report covers 4 key terms that we think we want to see from the world when it comes to climate change and solving climate change. So we're going to briefly go over these 4 turns that the policy report covers. And these 4 turns have basically been the pillars of the work we do with the Flashcard project.
So to start is the intergenerational turn. Obviously, this is probably one of our most important turns in this concept of having youth educate adults, to kind of switch that dynamic, as it is the future of youth that we are trying to highlight and designate as incredibly important, and youth voices need to be highlighted. So really bringing in the visions that youth have for their futures regarding climate, their wisdom from the experiences they've already had, as well as what they know will be coming. Mental health has definitely been something that we talk about a lot in these spaces in terms of just eco-anxiety and climate anxiety that youth are experiencing, thinking about their futures and the futures that they will be inheriting from policymakers.
Another core turn we have is a decolonial turn. We truly believe that social justice is a huge key component of advocating for climate action. So we basically advocate for a decolonial turn, cutting across the established hierarchies of Western knowledge, while opening up policy spaces for multiple perspectives, from indigenous and land-based knowledges to non-Western philosophies and eco-activist movements that recognize the interdependence of all beings. We also take a methodological turn, where we basically weave together the aesthetic and imaginative lenses of art and poetry with ecological and empirical knowledges. We wanted to take a creative approach towards communicating what changes young people want to see from climate change. And we wanted to be inclusive. What's amazing about this project is our youngest participant is 6 years old. And basically artwork has been a way for these young people to communicate what changes they want to see. And we truly believe that in order to solve climate change, we need to radically reimagine humanity's approach towards life. And part of imagination is artwork and poetry, which is why our project involves that.
Our final turn is the pedagogical turn, which is incredibly important because at the root of this project is figuring out how to transform our current education systems. As mentioned before, we are currently thinking in this mindset of economic growth rather than the growth of people, communities, and protection of the environment. So really embracing this idea of changing our education system in terms of what we teach and what the outcomes should be. And one of the things that I personally take a lot from this turn is the concept of embracing skill-based learning and critical pedagogy and critical reflection, and those mindsets of really understanding what your role is in the world and how that relates to your own community and the environment.
So over the past 1 year and a half, we've been looking at how we can activate these 4 turns and what dynamic projects we can do to make sure that these turns are advocated for through different activities. And we also have not limited our advocacy work to these 4 turns. We've also been looking at what other turns we could make. And this has basically sparked a journey for our team to take different paths towards advocating for these turns. And we're going to be talking about the different projects we've been doing to advocate for these changes.
So the real spark to this really engagement with activism was our first teach-in using the turnaround cards in spring of 2022. So this is a photo of some of our team members on the ASU campus We had a chalkboard that students can come up to and write about what gives them hope in the world. We had access to the cards, and we're just engaging students with them coming up to us and asking what they know about climate change, how they feel, and what they could do to learn more. And we additionally partnered with students to go into their classrooms and to do activities using the cards. Some of these activities included doing a tarot reading with the cards, or just playing a game, having students create their own cards, or just to have a discussion around a certain card, what it makes them feel. So this was really the spark of the movement that extended into us really embracing the concept of youth activism with this project, to take it one step further from not only youth educating adults about what they want to see, but actively voicing it too in activism spaces. So one of the inspirations we had from our climate teach-in was to have a march. Our initial idea was to have it occur on the same day as the teach-in, following it, but we realized that a march takes a lot of planning. So we decided to push it to Earth Day in spring of 2022. This is a photo from our march and all the wonderful students that wanted to be involved. As you can see, there are some large pictures of the Turn It Around cards involved in this. And the picture to the right of the screen is a picture of Sayarchana and I with our university's president, President Michael Crow, holding the Turned Around cards as we went to him with a student ask for universal sustainability education, support for student leadership and sustainability, and mentorship programs and guidance so we can further implement sustainable culture on our campus.
So along with these form of climate advocacy for climate education that we've done on campus, we also wanted to find ways to advocate for climate education in different spaces. So we've traveled to different conferences. Towards the left, we went to the Sun Valley Forum in Idaho to advocate for climate education and intergenerational collaboration towards solving climate change. Our project was launched at the United Nations Climate Change Conference in 2021, where we shared the card decks with policymakers and delegates from around the world. We also have been present in a lot of climate marches where we basically have printed these life-size posters of the project for young people to carry at these marches. We went to the Transforming Education Summit in New York and New York's Climate Week, where we went around basically Central Park and the subway, sharing the posters with people there. We also recently were at Columbia University for their Climate Week event, where our card decks were printed in life-size posters and basically hung around the room where education ministers were there. Towards the bottom right-hand corner, you can see a group of 5 world leaders and our project around them, basically bringing in the visions of young people into these decision-making spaces. And towards the top right-hand corner is a picture of our exhibit at the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. We went to the United Nations Transforming Education pre-summit in Paris, and our pieces of artwork and poetry were hung around the walls of the UNESCO headquarters, where ministers of education and other world leaders passed by these walls when entering the UNESCO headquarters. So our project has truly had a global touch, traveling around the world to basically advocate for climate education in both classrooms and policymaking spaces.
So where the project is going, really embracing the concept of the teach-in. We want to bring the project into classrooms. We've previously been bringing it to policymakers, but are now bringing it to educators to use in their own classrooms to teach with their students and encourage their students to create their own cards, their own ideas regarding the climate crisis. So we currently have a program where we're working with 8 teacher fellows from around the world, and have many based in Arizona too. And they're working with their classes to create activities using the Turn It Around cards that can be replicated by other educators and will be posted on the Turn It Around cards website. We're also working with youth to create their own activities. So we're currently at Arizona State University running a program to have youth at the university create an activity using the cards to practice it with other college students and to be able to document that so we can post it on our website so other youth can use it in activism spaces or universities for their own teach-in, to really encourage youth to engage with this project as well as climate action. So that extends into our resources that we're working on, developing activities, as well as games. We've been exploring the area of how do we just make this accessible to everyone, especially in a virtual format, and then really inspiring activism of bringing in new ideas, even extending how can we embrace how climate change interacts with other issues such as gender equality, mental health, and social equality in any space. So really figuring out how we can interpret the cards to support other issues as well. And we're really focusing on just using this concept of essentially multiple teach-ins throughout the year, educating in formal and informal spaces with the cards. So our call to action to all of you is, how will you turn it around for climate justice, either using our project or your own, and just kind of change the way we think about addressing the climate crisis.
If you want to follow us on social media, we have an Instagram page, a Twitter account, LinkedIn and Facebook, and we also have a TikTok. And our website has updates about our project, and our website also has an online version of the card deck where you can see the pieces of artwork and writing that young people have sent around the world. And we also have an email address. If any of you are interested in partnering on any projects, definitely send us an email. Or if you have any questions, also send us an email too. And we will be printing the card deck soon to be sold on our website again. So keep an eye out on our website, because soon we'll have card decks that can be sold for teachers to use in classrooms.
Yeah, thank you all for having us today. We hope that you'll be interested in engaging with our project. We would love to engage with you and see how we can support one another in this initiative.
Thank you. That's a fabulous project, and it's so exciting to see not only where you have come with this so far, but what you're planning to do with it in the future. And I think everybody here is thinking about ways that they might engage. So if there are any questions or comments, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself, or if you raise your hand, even you can call on them.
Any questions, please just unmute yourselves and ask, or put them in the chat. Let me see what we got in the chat. Really, it's an amazing project. And we've certainly, I think we've ordered our cards. Did you say that there are none available? There's more coming in? Is that what you said?
Yes, we're in the process of printing more in our warehouse. So if you ordered it before, then it's definitely coming your way. But as of right now, moving forward, we're not accepting any new orders yet until we print new card decks at our warehouse in New York.
Here's a question from Paula. How were the questions at and prompts generated?
So our questions were developed by two faculty members, Anne Nelson and Iveta Silova. They basically were the faculty founders of the project, and they wanted to find basically creative ways to engage young people and have them basically think about ways that they wanted to communicate to world leaders about what changes they want to see in climate education and climate policy. So for the art side of the project, we developed 7 prompt questions that young people could basically answer through artwork. And for the writing side, we also had 7 questions separately too, that young people could develop poetry to answer to. And we basically combined this together in one card deck. So these questions were developed by faculty members at ASU.
Fabulous. Well, David, I think we should move on to our next presenter.
I believe Anne had a question.
Yeah, let's give Anne a chance to ask her question.
All right, you're back on. Okay.
Hi, thanks. I'm curious, are those prompts available for those of us who might like to offer them to classes and groups of students?
Yes, the card decks are available. The thing is, we're still in the process of printing more. We basically printed a lot of card decks and gave them to our leaders in New York recently. So our warehouse is currently empty, but we're in the process of printing more card decks. And in the upcoming 1 or 2 months, we'll have more that can be printed. If you stay in tune with our social media channels, we'll be announcing when the card decks are available for sale. And our website will have them soon, possibly at the end of December. To be purchased.
And feel
Okay,
free
but I
to
was
make your own.
referring to the prompts you just answered that previous question about.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The prompts are available on the website. If you go to our submissions page, there's a drop-down menu and you can access all of those prompts. One of our activities is to encourage educators to use this in their own classrooms, even if their
Right.
students are reading their full cards, creating artwork, creating statements, kind of prompted or having conversations by the prompts on the website.
Great. Well, thank you, Sarah, Chana, and Elizabeth for that great presentation of such an exciting program. So now I want to turn to Dr. Jeanie Bukowski from Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois. Jeanie, I would say, as much as anybody, took this idea of a worldwide teach-in and totally ran with it in a multi-dimensional, year-long activity at Bradley University. And so, Jeanie, why don't you explain? And have we made Jeanie a co-host so that she can share her slides?
Not yet.
Yeah, let me know when I can share my screen. Hello, everybody. And let me just say while we're waiting for that, Salar, Chana, and Elizabeth, oh my gosh, that's just incredible. And I'm sorry I came in late. I've had a variety of crises this morning, including with my tech. So I'm hoping that this continues to work. But I'm just in awe of you students, and it's just fantastic. Oh my gosh, I think we're certainly going to be implementing some of this year. So can I share yet?
You're all set.
All righty, let me go ahead and do this. All righty, can everybody see my screen? Are we good? Yep. Okay. Well, let me just explain a little bit in terms of where I initially came from with this. I'm director of a brand new office on campus at Bradley University, and we're located in Peoria, Illinois. So landlocked Midwest. Lots of times people don't think globally. But we do have a tradition of having international studies, international business, a lot of really amazing global opportunities at Bradley, but they'd never really been showcased and networked. And so a group of faculty through the University Senate managed to bring into being this new Office of Global Studies and Initiatives. And this is only its second year in operation. And I am the faculty director of this office. So one of the things that we set forth as the charge of this office is that every year we would do a series of programming on a global theme. Just to get everybody across the university from all disciplines, across all the colleges. And we're a smaller university, but we're a comprehensive university. So of course we have the 5 colleges, including engineering and business. So the idea is, how do we bring people together, and in terms of a global issue that would be of importance to all, and to show students that what they're studying really is applicable, that the world is something they need to pay attention to, and also how to really think about solutions across disciplines. So last year's, or our first year of programming, we decided to do global sustainability. So that's when I heard about the initiative at Bard and jumped in along with multiple colleagues. And basically what we did was take the template that Eben and David had offered, and we ran with it. So we started early in terms of planning, and we were able to coordinate this through my office. We also recruited students from the get-go. We also took advantage of the Bard College trainings, the leadership trainings, which are just magnificent. So I think we had, I can't remember how many students we had go through. I think it was about 8. We had 2 that ended up doing the social media internships, which worked out really well. So we had students coming together really from early on first semester, started to talk to faculty early on first semester. And what we ended up with was a full-blown evening program. So we actually, and this is kind of neat too, you know, in terms of trying to draw everybody in across campus. We invited the jazz band, right? So we reached out to the music department and said, hey, we're doing this. So we had the jazz band, we had entertainment. Unfortunately, it was pouring rain that night, so we couldn't actually have them out on the front steps of our main building like we wanted to. We had to have them inside, but that worked out okay. And that actually then pulled in some of the music students who wouldn't have necessarily thought that they wanted to come to something like this. So that was really great. So we, again, took the model from last year. We did the 2 sets, it did a welcome, everybody in one place, did 2 sets of concurrent panels, and then concluded with primarily students in that conclusion brought together with administrators. And that has had some positive effects as well. So again, taking the template, here's the overall schedule, and we had this blown up on this huge poster and put this outside the main room. We had all of the panels going on in the same building, the main building on campus, almost all on the same floor. We had to go downstairs for one of the rooms, but otherwise it was all pretty much in the same area. We blasted it out to the community. We had a lot of community folks come. Our only disappointment there is that we did, my access to press is through our Office of Media and Communications. I made sure they did a press release. Not a single media outlet showed up, which was quite disappointing. What else we can do about that, I don't know, other than going. And I actually reached out personally to a couple people too. Nobody showed up, which was quite unfortunate. That I think was our only disappointment. So we worked really hard on all of these, and just as a glance through these show, it really, we had people from all 5 colleges, so everything from civil engineering to sociology to international studies, political science, education, health sciences. I mean, basically we managed to bring in someone from almost all of those areas. And we also really involved our students. So on each of our panels, we had a student moderator and discussant. So that worked out really well. There's our second set, which again, really crosses disciplinary boundaries quite well. And we actually heard afterwards, I've just heard so many faculty members who were just so excited about this and said, gosh, I hadn't really thought about this. I hadn't really thought how this connects to this other person, and this other department. And we're a small enough university, about 5,000 students, but still people don't necessarily talk to each other across those disciplinary silos. So this was a neat opportunity for our faculty to really engage in discussions across their disciplines over a problem that everybody considers to be so important. And then in the concluding session, we had 4 of our students from different majors, and all 4 of these students went through the BARD, the leadership training, and they did their presentation, and then I basically moderated, and we had, this is interesting in terms of bringing disciplines together. We have a new dean, Dr. Gribb, who is dean of both the engineering school or engineering college and business college, which, my goodness, you can imagine how difficult that is for her. But she though, okay, here's our advantage here. She's a civil engineer. Her background is sustainability. So she is a champion of this, which is wonderful. And then Chris Jones, Dr. Jones, he's vice president of a new division on campus, strategy and innovation. And actually, he's who I report to. He's also a political scientist, international relations, and so also very, very supportive of what we're trying to do. So it was really good to get the students and the administration together. We also brought in Illinois Citizens Climate Lobby, Peoria NAACP, Sierra Club, and we had tables, so these folks presented on some of the panels, and then we also had tables where students could immediately sign up, right? So the idea is, okay, what can I do? Well, I can sign up with this local organization right here in town to make a difference. And so that was a really neat aspect of that as well. Here's just some photos. We did, we got the university photographer to come in, so we got some really good photos. This is the final panel, and this is one of our student leaders, and I just absolutely love this picture of Max. And then again, just the passion of the students who participated in this. And then this is, just out in front of our venue in terms of what we put up out there, so people would know where to go in terms of the different panels. And again, just a couple more shots from that final panel, which I think really says a lot. The students were so confident in their presentations, were just so passionate about everything, and it was just marvelous to have the administration there also to see that passion in the students. So in terms of what we've accomplished since then, small steps. Bradley really has not had a sustainability commitment. We sort of have some things on the website on paper, but a lot of it had not been acted upon for a variety of reasons. We've managed to, a lot of the faculty that I've worked with this on, we've managed to move this forward a bit. We now are members of ASHE for the first time. I talked a couple departments into putting forth the money to be a host institution. So we were able to get I guess it was 100 registrations. We filled those up with students and faculty. We are beginning to make some headway on sustainability on campus. This year for International Education Week, which is next week, we're doing a workshop on the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and also make climate a class. I'm going to do the climate action one, and my focus will be to try to recruit people to get to participate in the coming teach-in. And we're basing this loosely on Brookings' 17 rooms, right? So we're going to have students, it'll be a very mini version of that, but students will go around the room to the different tables that will represent different sustainability goal, and there will be faculty members there, again, from a variety of disciplines, and the students will learn a little bit about each one and then brainstorm. We're going to give them little notebooks on forging change, and they're going to have to write down some solutions, just brainstorming. And then we hope that encourages more participation in the teach-in, and we are moving fully ahead with the Make Climate a Class. So we're trying to get, my goal would be to get 95+% of our courses on campus second semester doing the half an hour on climate change during that week. But then what we're also doing is, and I've got a lot of people who are on board with this, it's just a matter of implementation, pairing classes across disciplines, and not just doing the half an hour, but having those classes during that week commit to teaching about climate change from their disciplinary perspective that entire week. And then also the classes that are paired, their students would meet together to discuss this directly from different disciplinary perspectives. We'll also have a speaker, probably Don Wubbles from University of Illinois, come and speak to us, and then that will require the students in the paired classes to go, and that will give them another point to discuss things across their disciplines. So that's our hope. I will move on that even more after we get done with International Education Week next week. And thank you very much. And I can stop my share.
Well, thank you, Jeannie. That's awesome and inspiring. And Lynn has a question, but before I turn to Lynn, I just want to comment that, she's clapping. Yes, we should all be clapping.
Thank you.
One of the reasons for pairing these two presentations is, I think there's some commonalities, especially in terms of the leadership of the students, but then also illustrating the different approaches with the Bradley teach-in, emphasizing the event, and the Arizona State being more of a distributed classroom experience. And we hope that we can continue to be working with all of you and building those kinds of things. So are there questions or comments for that? I guess our Arizona State people had to leave, but are there questions or comments for Jeannie?
Yeah, I if the Arizona State people were still here, I guess I would just put forward another challenge sometimes. Maybe it's just the characteristic of being in a university very much in the Midwest, very much landlocked, a lot of people from Chicago. Sometimes it's difficult to get the students excited. Sometimes it's difficult to get them engaged. And so I really like the Arizona State approach in terms of kind of this bottom up. We did ultimately, though, and part of this was because, people either required it or gave extra credit or that sort of thing. But then we got such good feedback afterwards. We had about, I think it was, I didn't tell you what our attendance was. It was, I think, about 165 people attended the event, which I thought for the first time was pretty good. But getting our students involved, I think we're finding a lot more difficulty, and if something is not required, getting them to come to anything. I mean, you have your few students that are just so committed and passionate and they'll do anything, but just, even for our International Education Week events next week, we're doing a parade of flags for the first time. We've never done that. Just trying to get students to come and get involved is difficult. And I think that's kind of post-COVID, and various other things, but that is a difficulty. So I wish I had the Arizona State students, trying to inspire my students as well. So
Well, Jeannie,
Elizabeth is actually still here. So Elizabeth,
Yeah.
you can comment on that, please.
Yeah, I can attest that it's been just as challenging for us to get student engagement following the pandemic. There are those, as you exactly said it, how it is for us. There's that small group that will do anything and everything because they're incredibly passionate about it. But then shifting, especially the younger students, into these spaces has been a challenge. And one of the things that we've had to do is just be loud and annoying. To kind of get the word out and start getting people into these spaces. Which has been challenging, especially being in Arizona too, which is a very conflicted state when it comes to issues such as climate. But one of the things that we have been embracing is just like, how do we make this fun? One of the things that you can do to get students to come to events is always food. Sadly, we do have to use bribery to get them in the door, but once they're in the door, they tend to kind of just launch off from that and be excited about just being involved in general.
Yeah. Well, Jeannie, can I just say that you guys are just incredible rock stars. And one of the things that I think you illustrate well is how to leverage the cross-disciplinary kind of, out of the silo engagement to drive institutional change. So I hope that you're able to, leverage all of these networks of faculty you've made and met to continue to advance Bradley's leadership in the sustainability space. That's our hope. That really this is a way to engage climate concern faculty, not necessarily climate experts and others, in a bigger project and make them get over their own climate despair, by organizing within their institutions. And as you know, Jeannie, as well, it sounds like you're deep into this. Part of the reason we moved to the Make Climate a Class model was so that students didn't have to show up to an event. We could reach them directly in their classroom. And for those of you who don't know what that is, this year, in addition to an all-campus event, we're urging worldwide teaching organizers to reach out to all climate concerned faculty at their institutions and ask them to spend half an hour in their classes talking about climate change from their disciplinary perspective. So suppose I'm a math teacher and I'm teaching a class in, you know, college algebra and calculus and geometry or whatever, right? How am I supposed to do that? Well, I could spend 15 minutes talking about kind of the mathematics of tipping points, right? As really central to the way people think about climate change. And you can do, and could do that in all 5 of my classes that I'm teaching. And in that way, I'm talking to 150 students about climate change. And so that's a way to get actually thousands of students talking about climate change at Bradley. If you can do that with 20 or 30 professors, right?
Right.
So that is a big part of our strategy this year, to sort of sidestep the need to bring people together, although we still want that to happen because it's energizing and exciting, and for the people to participate, really memorable. But for those who aren't, let's reach them in the classroom.
Great, thank you both.
As I mentioned, I'm actively doing that with our faculty. Spoke in our faculty meeting, asked them to do that. I've written a letter to the entire faculty. I'll follow up with lots of faculty members to make sure that we do get at least 20, if not 30 or 40 participants in that Make Climate a Class initiative.
Yeah, so we're coming up on the hour, but Paula has asked a couple times about measurements and how we measure the degrees that participants experience connections with ecosystems, and I would say that measurement is always a challenge, but maybe somebody would want to follow up on maybe a little more specifically about measurement and evaluation.
Well, I think the initial thing in terms of, you know, when you're doing this the first time around, I guess my VP talks about leading and lagging indicators. So say a leading indicator, you know, in terms of first assessing something like the big thing we did last year was just simply counting, right? That's what you do first. How many panels, how many different disciplines were represented? How many students, how many different disciplines were represented? How many people actually attended the whole thing, right? And we didn't do like well, no, I guess we did. We participated in the survey, right? You all did.
Yeah,
You did the survey. So the survey would be another, you know, assessment mechanism initially. But then the tricky part is, you know, how do you measure learning, right? How do you, you know, is it some sort of a, you know, you have a, you know, I'm envisioning something like maybe we have a period of time where we do this, you know, we try to expand climate knowledge into coursework. We do more of the teach-in activity. And then is there some sort of an introductory survey when they're freshmen and an exit survey when they're seniors, or, you know, something like that? That might be kind of the gold standard, but it's hard. It is difficult. And I'm going to have to go teach a class. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, thank you. I think probably everybody is. I want to just give you one final task or one final opportunity here. Jeannie mentioned the BARD leadership development programs, and so maybe, and Jeannie, thank you very much once again, and thank you, Elizabeth. But even, do you want to quickly just talk about C2C and the social media fellowship? Or
yeah, we have a number of opportunities coming up for students in the spring. Those include a 10-week internship in social media for climate activism that will start late January and run through late March. If you're doing the teach-in, it's a great way to have a dedicated student who's promoting things in the media, which was a question that Jeannie had. We also are going to have a global student conference workshop on climate activism on Saturday, February 4th. And then finally, we run an all-day weekend leadership training workshop called the C2C Fellows Program, which will be on March 4th. So these are great ways for students to interface with other students around the world, work in teams, learn some skills, and build excitement towards participation in the teach-in. So you now are all on our mailing list, so watch for those opportunities coming your way. Do please promote them to students. They're all free. They're all really amazing learning opportunities. And we're building the Army, right? That's what all this is about. How do we create the global community of folks who are taking action now, but also learning the skills they need to drive change in the future? That's what we as educators need to be doing. So thank you for joining us. And we're here every week. David, what's coming up next week?
So next week, we're focusing on a couple of more pre-college programs, but I think they're going to be relevant to everybody. Our partnership with the National Wildlife Federation on the project hashtag Teach 10 Hours for Climate, and then a really cool group that I just learned about a few weeks ago called Write the World, which is building a community to improve writing among teenagers. And they have a strong climate and sustainability focus in that. So please join us for that next week, same time, same links. And then the following week, since believe it or not, it's already going to be the day before Thanksgiving, we're going to have a presentation with our Spanish-speaking partners. And so Carmen, if you can join, it's going to be in Spanish. And we're going to be talking, our Latin American and Caribbean partners are going to be talking about clase a la calle and some other approaches that are being used in Latin America.
Clases por la clima.
Well, otro a la calle, classes in the street.
Yeah, and the version of Make Climate Class. So,
yep.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us. And Tobias, please catch the chat before Eben closes the meeting. And we will send you the presentations and the recording.